Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel. Technology and money are two of my favorite topics, and on this channel, I talk about both of those in addition to trending news. Today, I wanted to have a conversation about robotics-driven drug manufacturing and innovating in the margins, and just have a quick, do a quick live and have a conversation about that. And what drove me to do this topic and just talk about it is a podcast that I came across over the holidays, along with the article. And then as I was reading the article, I thought about innovating in the margins in a company. I'm going to talk about a company that has done that. So one of the quotes from the podcast is, when you look at when you look at any industry and you see that there's no trust whatsoever, you see that their pricing is variable depending on where you show up and when, that's just an industry that's ripe to be disrupted. And so that quote, and I'm going to share my screen here. That quote is from an interview that Mark Cuban did on the Motley Fool podcast last week. Well, it was released last week. And in that interview, Mark Cuban is talking about the innovation that he is doing to disrupt the pharmaceutical medical drug industry. So if you haven't heard, earlier this year, Mark Cuban announced, or he started his own generic drug business. It's called Cost Plus Drug Company. So when he announced it, he initially talked about having his own PBM or his own pharmacy benefit manager as part of that. But he ended up partnering with an established PBM, which is Rightway. And what a pharmacy benefit manager is, if you have traditional health insurance, if you have health insurance, through private payer, or even through like Medicare, Medicaid, or government payer, they'll partner with, or they'll have an arm of their insurance company that's a pharmacy benefit manager. And what a PBM essentially is, it's like a third party that administers like the prescription drugs that are part of that program, like that are the prescription drugs that fall under like your insurance company, right? And that PBM is the one that's responsible for like making sure you get your medications, your prescriptions, that your provider is prescribing prescriptions that are covered under your benefit plan. They process it. They, help pay your, the PBM helps make sure like your provider gets paid, or, that everything is on the up and up with your insurance company. That's what a PBM. And then they can also like work with drug manufacturers or even pharmacies around like what prescriptions or what drugs should be in that PBM's drug formulary. They can do like discounts and things like that. So that's just very high level what a pharmacy benefit manager is. But anyway, so Mark Cuban earlier this year talked about his generic drug company, Cost Plus Drug Company, how he's innovating. He talks about it on this podcast as well. And then they partnered with a PBM, but now, and I'll share this article and you can go and listen to the podcast. And as always, I'll be sure to leave a link to all resources in the description box. So since Mark Cuban has, opened or started his generic drug company, which it's a drug company, but he only does generics, right? So to bring down costs and make it more affordable to people. So right now, his company has over 1 million customers, tons of different types of generic drugs. But the interesting thing about how Mark Cuban and his business is innovating in the margins. And I'll talk about it I'll give a perspective from like healthcare and pharmacy businesses, then also tied into like hair care for women. Okay. But since Mark Cuban has opened up his drug company with millions of customers, hundreds of generic drugs, the interesting thing is that some of the drugs that are in his drug company, if you're part of his program, can be 99% cheaper than retail prices, right? So what he's totally doing is disrupting what is traditionally known about like pharmacies and, you know, how consumers get not healthcare, but get the medications with their healthcare. So on this podcast, and there's an article as well that Becker's, and I've talked about Becker's before, y'all. Becker's has a lot of good tea in healthcare, like in IT, cybersecurity, leadership, and more. But in this article in Becker's that pretty much gives like a high level overview of the podcast, Mark Cuban talks about how he is now in the process of opening up a manufacturing plant to make the drugs, right? That's going to be in Dallas. So on the podcast, he shared his plans for the $11 million Dallas manufacturing plant. But in this plant is really interesting. Okay, this is the whole thing about the innovation. So in his manufacturing plant is going to use robotics, which will allow his drug company to be nimble and manufacture simple drugs that are supposed to be regularly available, and then turn around and then numerous injectables in a day to boost hospital supply. So with the robotics that's going to be used in this manufacturing plant, so they can set up the machines to be able to like manufacture one drug, and then it can pivot, and then they can quickly do another setup to manufacture a different type of drug. So for example, in the article, it says, for instance, once the company has met hospitals' demands for sterile water, the robots can switch over to make Pitocin before switching 4 hours later to make another drug. Pitocin is a drug that's used in obstetrics and gynecology to help induce labor for women who are in labor for childbirth. So what's interesting is when I read this article, I thought back to years ago when I was in undergrad, and 3 of my friends worked at a pharmaceutical manufacturing plant, and it was good money for college students. That was a good part-time job with good flexible hours, making good money, right? And so they all worked at this manufacturing plant, but they were humans. And so what jumped out to me, you know, I've talked about on this channel before, and there are other channels here on YouTube that talks about the innovation that's happening with robotics and automation. We know it's already there. It's disrupting the fast food industry. It's disrupting, you know, also like the automobile industry. So, you know, robots are being used and being disrupted in many industries, in the military, with weaponry, in healthcare, with robots to assist healthcare workers to help reduce injuries and better care for patients, etc. So it's interesting. This is the first time that I have come across an article or information about how robotics and automation are being used to disrupt the pharmaceutical industry. And, you know, I've talked about and I've heard about on other podcasts how as human beings, it's important that we're always, as industries are evolving and innovating and becoming more automated, it's really important for us to ensure that our skill sets are in line step with the innovation that's happening, so we ourselves don't become obsolete. Maybe the work that we do today goes away, but we learn and pick up different skills new skills, or we evolve in the work that we do. So, if we're still in the labor market, we are remaining in step with the technology, innovation, and automation that's happening. So he goes on to say, Mark Cuban goes on to say, in terms of looking forward to 2 or 3 years, if that market is as big as we think it is, and we're able to end shortages for drugs that hospitals need, because that does happen. Sometimes there's a shortage of IV fluid. Sometimes there could be a shortage of like syringes, things like that. It could be wipes. But that's not a drug, but like it could be shortages, particularly pediatric drugs. We not only are going to feel really good and make a little bit of money, but we'll be able to expand our capacity, hopefully by 10 times, and buy some time so that the robotics get better, cheap, or faster, right? Because that's machines and machine learning. So I had it doesn't talk about it in the article, but I have a feeling that this drug manufacturing plant that's going to use robots to manufacture these pharmaceuticals will have some type of machine learning embedded in it. When he says, so the robots get better, cheap, or faster, that it's going to have some type of machine learning in it. And I have a feeling that there's going to be a whole analytics team that's going to do data analytics, data visualization, etc. So then it goes on to say the 22,000 square foot sterile fill-finish facility designed to respond rapidly to drug shortages and price hikes is scheduled to open in Dallas in the fourth quarter of 2022. So it's supposed to open this month in November. I don't know if it's open yet. I just came across this article over the holidays. So he then says that his Cost Plus Drugs, that's his drug company, has received little to no reaction from pharmacy's legacy players, which is just fine. So apparently the historical pharmaceutical industry is just not paying attention to what he is doing and how the innovation that he is doing within his with his business and his business plan. So the host of the podcast asked him what's the reaction that he's seen, that Mark Cuban has seen from CVS and Walgreens, because those are heavy players in pharmaceuticals, healthcare. CVS has like the Minute clinics, and CVS Health has this whole IT health IT innovation arm as well. And so Mark Cuban says, they think we're just tiny and they ignore us, which is great. That's exactly what we want. They don't pay a ton of attention to us yet, but it's because they're vertically integrated that we have this opportunity, because that enables them to distort prices, to play left pocket, right pocket. If I don't make it at the pharmacy, I'll make it at the PBM. If I don't make it at the PBM, I'll make it through our insurance company. So this is what he says. He says their margin is our opportunity, which I'm going to tie it up here in a minute. Let me just do a quick time check. Okay, cool. 13 minutes in. He says their margin is our opportunity. I don't think they're paying attention to us yet. They know we exist. We've heard them say things to politicians and heard them say things to others. But it's going to be very difficult as these huge public companies to adapt as quickly as we can. So part of in the podcast, it talks about innovating in the margins. Well, I thought about, I was like, okay, so he's innovating in the margins. He's paying attention and looking at ways to, reduce drug costs for consumers, make it to use technology, which is the robots, which again, I don't know this next part. I don't know for sure. I just have a feeling that surely those robotics will have some type of artificial intelligence embedded in them. So, machine learning, the more data that you feed into the algorithm, the better that it gets. It gets better and better with larger and larger and larger volumes of data. So talking about, let's take that concept of innovating in the margins and apply it to a totally different industry. And the different industry that I'm going to take this concept of innovating in the margins and apply it to is the hair care industry, specifically synthetic or hair that women of color, Black women, Black women or other minority women, or even non-minorities, but very heavily used in Black women and minority women, used for protective hairstyling, right? So traditionally, for Black women or for minority women, when you get a protective hairstyle, so you see like on Rebundle's website, you see these beautiful, gorgeous protective hairstyles. We see some box braids. You see the thick, the bigger, medium-sized box braids. There's some cornrows there. I just love these hairstyles. There's some cornrows, etc. And there's all kinds of other protective hairstyles. There's like goddess locks, butterfly braids, etc. You get the deal. But the interesting thing is this is a known fact, that the beauty industry, that traditionally women of color, minority women, Black women purchase their hair care products or their beauty products from, are Asian owned, like the beauty supply stores, etc. Now, over the last few years, there has been a rise in non-Asian owned beauty supply stores. I know in my home state, there are a couple I know there's some online that are operating. I know there's a lot more in the bigger cities, but traditionally, the beauty industry for minority women, for Black women, has traditionally been Asian owned, and beyond like the beauty supply store, also like the nail salons, and where you can get waxing and things like that. So within that beauty industry, you go to buy the hair extensions to add into your hair for a protective style, such as box braids. But you have to, because of the chemicals that are added into the hair extensions, it causes a lot of people to have allergic reactions to it. I have a friend who has allergic reactions to synthetic hair, and when she found out she was allergic to it, like she got some box braids done, and then when she woke up the next day, her face she was having a traditional allergic reaction, so she had to take the hair down, take the extensions out, go to the urgent care, get antihistamines, etc. But that's not uncommon thing. There are many women who are allergic or have allergies to the chemicals that are added into hair extensions. And so what women have started doing is, when they buy the hair extensions, is they soak the hair in apple cider vinegar. I've done that. Like when I've gotten protective styles, you go to the beauty supply store, you buy the hair, it comes in packs, and before you get the hair installed into your hair, you like put it in the tub or the sink. Typically, like I've done it in the tub, depending on like the hairstyle that you're getting, how many packs of hair. Just take all the hair off the packs, put it in a tub of water, and just put lots of apple cider vinegar in it and let it soak. And when you do that, it starts foaming, it turns white, and what it's doing is lifting like the heavy chemicals off of the hair extensions. Then you have to like rinse the hair, and then you have to hang it up and let it dry completely before you get it. So it's a process. Like I have done it. I've done it twice, and the last time I was like, I'm not doing this no more. It's just too much work before you even have to get your hair done, right? So if you have like, I don't know, for example, 10 packs of hair, you're having to soak the hair, get the vinegar, let it soak. You can smell, like it's like a smell as the vinegar is interacting with the chemicals and the extensions. Then you have to like rinse it really well. Then you have to hang it up and make room for it in your bag. It's just a whole process. About 2.5 years ago, I heard of Rebundle, and it goes back to this concept of innovating in the margins. Okay. So Rebundle, it is a company here, and I'm on their website. And let me just make sure my screen is still sharing. Y'all just bear with me. Okay. Yes, it is. Okay. So Rebundle is the first plant-based, environmentally friendly hair extensions that are available. And it's interesting, right? So these hair extensions are made from banana stems. So they're made from plants. So they don't have the chemicals in it that traditional hair extensions have. You don't have to soak it in vinegar, etc. Get the chemicals. And why are those chemicals in it? The last time I did that whole process, I was like, why are these chemicals even in the hair? And there's some people who do the whole soaking in vinegar and all of that process, and they still have allergic reactions. And I've noticed the last time I was in a beauty supply store, maybe about a year ago, I was just browsing, and I saw that the beauty supply stores are now selling pre-soaked hair it doesn't say pre-treated. It's like it's called pre-soaked or something on the packaging that lets you know that the chemicals have been removed, but you still have they still had the kind that has not been pre-treated. I was just like, it just kind of made me think, right? Which is what stopped me from not getting those protective styles anymore. But at any rate, I came across this company called Rebundle, and they are innovating in the margins. So their hair extensions are plant-based, they're environmentally friendly, and you see here on their website, there's patent pending. So I'm glad about that, because when I first came across this technology, it is technology. When I first came across this about 2.5 years ago, I was like, oh my goodness, someone's going to try to steal their idea. It wouldn't be the first time that the beauty industry has stolen from smaller creators, they didn't get the credit. And the larger company, took the idea and, ran with it and claimed it as their own. I think maybe about 3 years ago, there was a hair YouTuber I used to follow. I still follow Miss Precious Marie. She came up with a new technique for doing a protective style with wigs and with wig caps. And there was a hair care company, I think it was Hair VV, allegedly took that idea and started claiming it as their own and selling it. It was just a whole controversy on beauty YouTube. And I thought about it, the backlash was just I just remember that whole thing. So I'm glad to hear that Rebundle is, their technology is patent pending. You can see it uses discarded banana stems. When I first heard about it, I was like, okay, this hair, once you take the extensions out, now usually you traditional extensions that you buy from the beauty supply store, the kind with the chemicals in, or even the pre-soaked kind, once you take the hair out, you gotten box braids or goddess locks or butterfly braids or whatever, faux locks, you have to throw that hair away, right? And because you just can't use it again. Then you have to go back to the beauty supply store and buy more. But this hair is interesting. Once you deinstall it, because it's as sustainable and environmentally friendly, you can apparently plant it. You can put it back into the earth, to grow more plants, which is really interesting. So just the history of it, they talk about on their website, the founders experienced scalp irritation from plastic synthetic hair, and they decided to come up with an alternative. Here is the founder here, and they also have a YouTube page in addition to their website, where you can buy the hair. You can see their motto is more comfort, less waste. And they said, our mission is to dramatically reduce the health and environmental disparities in the hair extensions industry. So this to me is a great example of innovating in the margins. So thinking back to Mark Cuban and the interview he did on the podcast, and he talks about, his company being the smaller company, the legacy, larger pharmacy companies aren't paying attention to what he's really doing. And that is allowing his company and the work that they're doing in the pharmaceutical and drug industry they can be more nimble because they're smaller, right? And they can innovate, they can fail faster. And I think along the same lines with what Rebundle is doing as well. So they just recently, being Rebundle, because when I first heard about them about 2 years ago, I tried to get the hair. Every time they did a drop, it always sold out really fast. I could never get the hair. And at that point, I just haven't gotten a protective style that use extensions, synthetic hair extensions since then. But it's interesting here. So none of the ingredients used in their hair is on California's Prop 65 list of banned chemicals. So some of those traditional synthetic hair extensions are. But yeah, y'all, that's it. Here, this is Rebundle's YouTube page. And again, I'll be sure, and this is non-sponsored. I wanted to make that clear. This is their YouTube page where you can go and check out more of their product and their industry. So yeah, y'all, that's it. I just wanted to have a quick conversation on the use of robotics and drug manufacturing, innovating in the margins, and think about the closing message is, if you're a content creator like this channel is, a small content creator, or you have a business that is, operating in an industry that is dominated by legacy businesses that are bigger, have more resources, how much of an advantage that can be to your business, even if you're small, or your idea, even if it's small, even if what you're doing has not been done before, and taking advantage of being small, being nimble, and being able to innovate in the margins. If you made it this far in the video, thank you. Please consider liking this video, sharing it, leave a comment below, and I will see you in the next video.